Greetings friends. As I promised you in past videos, now I will tell you some interesting things about the ancient history of alchemy. About my research and some interesting facts that clearly prove that these ancient wise alchemists possessed an enormous scientific knowledge, as well as a great understanding of the wonderful processes that make up all life. Let's start. In the previous video, I told you a little about alchemy, about its secret origins in ancient Egypt, about Thoth and the emerald stone, about alchemy as a sacred magical knowledge used only by the most wise, the high-rank cultists and priests, by ancient Egyptian sorcerers, the heirs of Hermes, his apprentices and keepers of the sacred hermetic precepts, those who secretly safeguarded the recipe of the philosopher's stone. There, the word chem was first used to refer to this secret recipe. For a long time, Egypt, or Aegyptus, as it was originally called, enjoyed an incredible splendor, an unimaginable and very strange wealth, just as if they were creating the gold itself, as well as technical and cultural advances only comparable to Atlantis and its predecessors. All this aroused envy in civilizations like the Greek. Those who desired the knowledge and power of the Egyptians. I don't know if you are familiar with the story of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, about covert deceptions and betrayals, the temporary alliances and sabotage carried out to gain more and more Egyptian control. Even the Greek philosophers were interested in the Egyptian ways and their rituals, being the first to notice the curious similarity between Egyptian alchemy and what they called Celtic magic. From here, a very curious mix between these Egyptian and Celtic rites would take place. The alchemical rites that englobe gods and nature. We already talked about this in the video of Merlin. The mixes between the ritualistic practicing, the Greek and Celtiverian beliefs about the composition of matter from the four natural elements, fusing them using the techniques or sacred rituals learned from the ancient Egyptians, their secret science, their chemia. Then, when Egypt was occupied by the Arabs in the 7th century, it happened again, adding al to the word chemia, remaining alchemia, the chemia of Allah, the chemistry of God, the Black Land. What can we derive from all this? Well, ancient cultures realized that there was a similarity between their various divine transformation rituals, their invocations, offerings, and elementary forces, all being the same. Why is that? A cosmic law that exists beyond everything and in which they were based. The divine instructive on which all the combinations appear. All the combinations that exists. But let's continue. Alexander the Great came later, conquering Egypt. In 391, Christian invaders burned the Great Library of Alexandria, destroying many very relevant alchemical works. As a result of this, many other texts were hidden or codificated. This is what we now call ancient occultism. Hiding the meaning behind sacred symbolism. In this way, alchemy has always been surrounded by a halo of mystery. The first alchemists, those who began to decipher the lost ancient texts, were very suspicious of their discoveries. Generally, all the great recipes came from that lost ancient knowledge. Many alchemists were cruelly tortured into revealing their findings. For this reason, they create the first secret societies to protect and transmit their knowledge only for the few who are ready to understand them. Those who are in the search of enlightenment. Only a selected few were privileged to be part of these first secret societies. The initiation rites were said to ensure that the initiate was noble and wise. This was sought to create a better world, one full of illumination. I don't need to say that these societies were later corrupted, usurped, and replaced by Satanist doctrines. The ego and superiority led them to narcissism and selfishness, to greed and genocide. Dark alchemists against light alchemists. A covert war. One that we call the Holy Inquisition. The Satan's Inquisition. One of many terrible things that happened in the so-called obscurantism. The Dark Age that we already talked about in a past videos. Thus, the light alchemists were forced to go into hiding, to hide their knowledge among encrypted language, passing it off as religious symbolism, so not to be persecuted. In this way, a work that would seem to refer to Christian iconography would hide within itself a very correct Egyptian alchemical interpretation, seen only through initiated eyes. In the alchemical principles, it was thought that matter and metals had to go through several transformation processes to purify themselves, get separated from the impurities, in the same way as Oz. That we wouldn't purify ourselves if we don't explore our spiritual path towards perfection, to knowledge and wisdom, towards love, peace, and harmony. And also within material alchemy, the nature as object of study, purifying and mixing elementary matter elements to deciphering the secrets of their contained energy, the reactive reactions and their contained charges. The other elements held it inside. Their transformation and mixes of their substances. Just the same do biochemists today. since they knew that deciphering those secrets would provide us with great knowledge and well-being. Those things that in ancient times would have been considered as magic. The alchemists were the magicians of matter and spirit, thinkers of nature, a mix between inventors and scientists. In old times, alchemists were camouflaged between artists, architects, and doctors. At that time, alchemy was considered apocryphal and pagan, feared and stigmatized as demonic activity. The term alchemy was already forgotten, and it was very little known at that time. Alchemy was an art that was never taught in any formal school, only by means of master and apprentice. Jesuit theologians and scholars from various lodges quickly conceptualized it as a demonic ritualistic practice, completely unrelated to science. Clearly the opposite. Being that all modern practical science is based on replicate nature processes. The most pure and sacred alchemy. However, the concept of current technology being modern alchemy is the result of my personal research on the occult, on my astral experience on the other planes, and my interpretation of the initiatory hermeneutic symbolism. All that, together with the Gnosticism, served to outline most of the understandings of the physical and chemical phenomena of this material realm. All the phenomena that makes possible a modern alchemy that we use today. This is a great secret that, like many others, is at plain sight, but that they have distorted and separated through scientific technicalities, minimizing its ineffable greatness. Alchemy could also be considered as the holistic understanding of all natural sciences, of its energetic processes. There is no science that is not natural. Even the artificial is based on natural matter and natural phenomena, composed of elements present and created by this world and its alchemy. The artificial does not exist. The technology does not exist. It is only a concept created for not to tell you that has been always alchemy. So you never understand what technology really is. So you never approach the divine creation. For people to never doubt anything the system said. The beginning of the separation of the alchemical sacred sciences happened after the Great Flood, long after the god Thoth created the emerald stone, long after it was broken and buried. The human being had forgotten what was taught, giving differentiation to something that didn't have. The new human being, in ignorance of the ancient precepts, saw a differentiation between the physical nature and the spiritual nature. The modern human could no longer understand or decipher the ancient occult texts. People could no longer understand the real nature behind the illusion of itself. I must tell you here that in the origin ancient times, it was not at all like today. We were very powerful beings, endowed with a great conscience and abilities that today would seem like superpowers. But they suppressed our ancestral connection. It's a deep topic that requires a full video later. But for now, let's continue. Alchemy in this way would be the absolute pillar that links science with the energy of transformation. This means that it's a belief that completely links physics and chemistry on a nuclear level to matter and energy, to transmutation. Isn't it strange that modern science tells them phenomena, and that the alchemy of thousands of years ago knows exactly what they are? It is enough to take a look at our environment to realize that we use alchemy on a daily basis and without realizing it. They have stolen the alchemical essence from everything. That is why people no longer value this world. That's why not even scientists value their own work. They were corrupted for pieces of paper. And it's not their fault, but of the imperialist system that seeks to perpetuate itself in power by controlling alchemy. That's right, friends. The greatest power of the dark alchemists has been to control the alchemy in the meaning itself. Hoard it, and make profit from all the inventions that provide us with well-being, hiding those that give us excessive freedom. Money is another one of those forms of alchemical control. Yes, currency money is also alchemy. And why do I say that? Well, it turns out that the paper itself used is an alchemical process. The inks, the magical symbols empowered in them. In fact, the money was actually created as a way to control alchemists. This because kings did not like that there were people capable of creating gold. So they start to print it. Mark it. They doesn't like there to be people who were above them in knowledge and wealth. The usurping church did not like all of this either, cause it revalued the ancient beliefs full of glory and power, re-evaluating the notion of an absolute God as the creator of the alchemy. For all these reasons, this practice became a clear enemy of the dominant royal castes, outlining his path to the destruction and concealment of all those calling them pagan. In the ancient practice of alchemy, notions of astronomy, astrology, spirituality, chemistry, physics, and even art are intermingled. Religion and mythology. Alchemists became something like an ancient order of magicians that no one knew much about anymore. The creation of the elixir of eternal life was one of the most coveted goals for those who inquired into ancient knowledge. Many were looking for the possibility of curing some disease, even bringing people back from the dead. However, during these experimentation processes, other types of advances were achieved in what is today's chemistry, anatomy, medicine, and botanics. The alchemist Paracelsus made important contributions to modern pharmaceuticals. Do you get it? How all that exists is alchemy. It was not witchcraft, although there were witches who practiced it in its diverse variants. But the true alchemy is neutral, seeking natural communion, not the artificial, non-degradable one. The light alchemy seek elemental purification for the welfare of all beings and of the natural world, not for self-gain around exploitation of the resources. Alchemy has a great notion focused on esotericism. That is, in the inner search. And another notion in charge of revealing the secrets of matter and its properties. Find the key to the transmutation of each element and be able to make changes to its structure. This constant search for answers to ancient mysteries led alchemists to carry out a multitude of experiments on minerals, liquids, and gases, developing techniques that allow to consolidate again a knowledge that has been extinct for centuries, allowing us to realize the tremendous similarity that exists between the alchemical laws and all the transformation processes that we sadly call phenomena. Chemistry as a science is considered to have replaced alchemy in the mid-17th century when a work entitled The Skeptical Chemist by the Irish alchemist Robert Boyle, son of the Earl of Cork, Lord Treasurer of the Kingdom of Ireland, was published. Robert Boyle was also a co-founder of the so-called Invisible College, a precursor of what is now the Royal Society of London. In this book, he proposes the use of the scientific method for the study and investigation of the natural sciences, something that is correct. Also rescuing many very old alchemical precepts around medicines and herbal recipes that we still use today, as well as precepts for the manufacture of light metals such as aluminum and titanium. This only is a proof that the laws of alchemy are real and undeniable. With this book, these people start to separate alchemy from its spiritual part. They removed the magnificent parts, which really explained what this world is, making their lies fall. In this way, Boyle established a difference between practical alchemy, human, and natural alchemy, one that many times we do not fully understand, since within itself it holds many secrets. Just like the gases we saw, having more elements within. That is why everything natural has elements that can never be fully comprehended. The replicable and demonstrable experiments are nothing more than phenomenal experiences that have been repeated many times with the same results, making us think that is a law. However, how many times experimentation shown us an alteration in the results after changing only one of its variables? Things that we believe as a law, but that changes without expect. Just like diamonds and their electricity, changing only when irradiated with boron. The interesting thing about alchemy is just that. Finding the specific reagents that were devised by the divine being and his alchemy. Reagents in the manner of a plan already established and designed from the very creation. Reagents that, when mixed, cause the release of their contained charges. Energy that provides us with well-being. We just need the right combinations that make things happen. And the alchemy is the knowledge of the great instructive. That is why this is an awakening to all the knowledge that has been divided and hidden from us. Alchemy, for around 300 years, has been strongly linked to Freemasonry, because these are considered as the descendants of those guardians. That is why all the great inventions and ideas have come from these people. All their ideas and methods, their symbols and beliefs, are based on alchemy. In human alchemy, all those practices that look very similar to scientific experiments. All this always entails a mixture between human idealization, scientific mysticism, and chemistry as elemental manipulation. Something that never tell us. I repeat, alchemy, as chemistry, is elementary manipulation. Control the elements. Be aware of how this divine understanding is used today. I don't know if you manage to visualize the greatness behind these revelations. Alchemy itself is the understanding of that divine plan. It is the instructive of the world, also teaching the necessary wisdom to know the great responsibility that this knowledge entails. Some of the most famous alchemists of the established chronology is, for example, Zosimus of Panopolis. He is the author of the oldest books known to deal with the practice of alchemy. It explains that alchemy originated in Egypt, practiced only by the priestly class. He also explains some of the techniques used by the early alchemists, instruments that are still in use today. That is why it's a valuable document for the study of Hermetic occultism. Hermeticism is a practice of alchemy related to the legendary Hermes Trismegistus, who created a spiritual and philosophical system that was imparted to the first Egyptian sages. He is linked to the Egyptian god Thoth, the regent of Egyptian alchemical wisdom. He is the author of the Emerald Table, which contains the 36 alchemical laws of correspondence. Laws that we will talk about in a complete future video. The 42 books of Hermes are a compilation of all the Egyptian knowledge about alchemy. It explains the practice and philosophy of Hermetics. When the Greeks and Romans had contact with the Egyptian civilization, it expanded to other territories such as Alexandria, where it was widely combined, as we have already said, with Celtic and Arabic magical rites, as if they were several aspects of the same language. Paracelso also made important advances in the development of medical research. His work is considered to have directly influenced modern science as we know it. Like him, many alchemists in his time suffered rejection by Christian society, being considered scammers or liars for their practices. Another famous alchemist, whose works were translated into Latin because of his importance, was Geber, or Yebiohayan, an alchemist of Arab origin who was also an astronomer and astrologer. He is the author of the first published books dealing with the practice of alchemy, in the same terms in which elements and substances are now posed. Another important alchemist was Nicholas Flamel, of whom we already spoke in the past video, and which is said he could be able to create the Philosopher's Stone and achieve immortality. Another of the most controversial alchemists in history was the German Johann Conrad Dippel, who also worked as a doctor, theologian and philosopher. It is said that his experiments were looking for a way to transfer a soul to a dead corpse, something which is considered a myth. So, he experimented with an alchemical practice called necromancy. San Alberto Magno was an alchemist who made important advances in the field of astronomy and current geography. Part of the bad reputation that alchemists had was due to the church for experimenting with things that are banned or removed from ecclesiastical thought, hiding pagan mythology among biblical language. The result was a very strange mix of occultism that, when remixed with Judeo-Hebrew doctrines, led to what is known to this day as the Kabbalah, forming another mode of religious interpretation as a dogma control, forgetting the oldest and most sacred, the purest. In this way, the search for answers from the first scientists, absent from alchemical thought, resulted in the birth of physics. Since this was intended to understand the very nature of matter and energy, the difference between the animate and what they considered inanimate. Alchemy, then, is based on observation and experimentation. In the recipes that gave rise to metal alloys, to the glass works and artillery, to the medicines. Alchemy was also based on ancient astrology. Impressive astrology that ancient civilizations knew, and that today we do not quite understand how they could carry it out. How is that ancient people knew in detail things like the precession of the equinoxes around Polaris, or the subtle curved and cyclical movement of the solar analemmas? The truth is that ancient knowledge goes beyond anything we currently know as possible. Since ancient times, there was also a belief among alchemists that each metal was under the influence of a celestial energy. For example, iron corresponded to Mars, silver with the moon, gold with the sun, and so on. Each metal was associated with a symbol of power, depending on its corresponding star, also corresponding with the musical natural tones. Incredible. Do you see it? How everything have a correspondence in terms of creation. A cycle, or plan to be fulfilled. A purpose. In alchemical terminology, this is called palingenesis. The complete alchemical cycle that make up this plane on which we are living. Alchemists, in their eagerness to obtain new materials, developed various chemical techniques, such as filtration and distillation, also giving rise to new alloys, discovering unknown elements, and obtaining acids and bases by chemical methods. Usually, alchemists were also doctors, and had knowledge of astrology and philosophy, like Paracelsus, considered the most famous promoter of hermetic medicine and alchemical therapy. Other important alchemists were Bolos de Mendes, who enunciated the principle of unity in the first matter, Marcus Gricus, and Falconelli. Each of them initiated only the most faithful disciples into the true art, excluding those who were not considered ready. This knowledge, in addition to being registered through the use of occult symbolism and archetypes, generally were also written under a pseudonym, a false name. All this, joined with the lack of initiatory knowledge and ignorance in the use of the ancient symbolism, greatly difficult the study of ancient alchemy. In the next video we will continue on this subject, as well as other equally interesting ones, around the ancient mysteries of alchemy. About the emerald stone and its 36 laws, or alchemical precepts, which are fulfilled at all levels of life. Let's wake up to all the wonderful that's been hidden. Remember that none of this will be taught on schools. Let's educate children for them to know about the great responsibility they have with this world and with the future. For them to revalue nature and go against all devaluing alignment or doctrine. For them to use their will and alchemical work in order to human communion and natural sustainability. Let's educate for the future. It's the only way for a real change. Share this information with your followers. We speak the truth, and we will be heard. You just have to wake up from the great deception. The system does not work. Time to get out. Reactive Factory Project.